Clutter in your home is not just unsafe, it can have an impact on your mental well-being.
Today we'll enter the world of professional organizing and learn some interesting ways to keep your spaces junk-free.
I'm Margot St. Ledger.
And I'm Ed Beimefor, and this is The Voice.
Today on The Voice, we'll meet a senior whose busy schedule has left her with little time to clean up, and talk to an organizational expert who will tell us how easily disorganization can become extreme. And for those of you who just can't part with those prized possessions, we'll also show you how to care for your collectibles.
Memories, keepsakes, or just plain junk. Whatever word you use to describe your belongings, there's one thing many seniors have in common.
Yes, Margot, eventually some things need to be thrown away, but loss of physical strength, a lack of extra help, or just having difficulty throwing things away may prevent many older adults from living clutter-free.
Our first guest knows the ins and outs of making homes neat.
Dorothy Breininger, the founder of the Center for Organization, is here to discuss the psychological reasons that keep older adults from getting rid of excess stuff.
Now, Dorothy, before we talk, we're going to take a look at one senior whose home needed a little extra personal attention.
My name is Lillian Barker, and I am an active member of the residents group here in Charlestown. Sherry Parrish, who is the head of resident life here at Charlestown, has heard me complaining about my lack of adequate closet space in this small apartment where I live.
My name is Cheryl Larson. I'm the owner of Cheryl's Organizing Concepts, a professional organizing company. We specialize in helping homeowners and small businesses with all aspects of organizing.
Well, I've thought about it many times, but I've never seriously acted on hiring a professional organizer.
Lillian's biggest challenge to being more organized in her closet and in her apartment is she has very limited space.
Everything is not quite as neat and tidy as I would like.
She only has one closet, except for a very little one where she keeps linens. In addition to that, in the middle of the closet was a huge hot water heater. I got a general idea of what she would be willing to get rid of and what she wanted to save. And you always hope that as the project progresses, that the client will decide to get rid of more things, which usually happens. Older adults tend to live in limited space, most of them. And a lot of them have come from much larger surroundings, and they've had to give up a lot to get where they are. So they're resistant to give up any more. You go slow with them, and usually they pick up and they're ready to start parting with things, and then they realize how much better it feels when they do.
My closet is cluttered because it must contain a great many things that I have no other space except for a linen closet, which is, of course, taken up with my linens.
Wow. Well, I wonder how that's going to look after the cleanup process. Dorothy, why is it that more and more seniors are turning to professionals for help in organizing?
I think the reason that is happening, I give lots of workshops, and when I get out there and I talk to maturing folks, they say, my kids don't want to have my stuff. They don't want my heirlooms anymore.
I would be bad at this because I saw that footage, and that was like a treasure trove to me. I'd be turning saying, oh, you don't want to get rid of this. You want to, this is something good. You want to hold on to this.
Let me go through that with you.
What kind of expertise is it that you have or someone else might have that can come into someone else's home that they don't know and advise them what to get rid of?
It's not expertise per se. It really is a secret. If I'm going to come into your home, I'm going to say to you, what would you like to keep? See, everybody else.
And what if the answer is everything?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Okay. Because I need to gain your trust.
Okay.
And usually what's going on is a family member, you know, daughter, son will come in and say, oh, Mom, you got to get rid of this. I mean, this. Look at this. But it might be really valuable to that person.
Sure.
And especially people who are in their 60s and older, saving was considered a virtue. And to suddenly say...
Do you go by the rule of if you haven't touched it in a year, you've lived without it for a year and it should go?
I don't go by that rule.
Okay, because I do that with clothes.
Because there
if I haven't worn it in a year...
some heirlooms that you may not have touched for a long time.
Okay, heirlooms, true, of course.
But Margot, you're
But
close.
enjoyed or had out or something.
You want to be asking, what's the story behind this? dress or this statue or this purse, whatever it might be. Because
Right.
once you know the story, like a friend gave it to me and I don't want to offend her by throwing it out, that's a clue that you might be able to.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas if it's a dress my mom made for me back when,
Right.
I'd like to keep it.
So you're coming in with a systematic approach
Absolutely.
to evaluating object by object, and starting
quite
with
a
the
job.
story behind it, I'm sure helps gains the trust and confidence of the person whom you're trying to assist.
And the promise not to throw anything away. Because I don't have to throw anything away as a professional organizer.
It's
But
them
you
that
might
are
throw it away
parting.
once I say I'm not going to.
So what you're really attempting to do is to facilitate that person's orderly decision making,
Yes.
as it were.
Yes.
How about
Perfect.
organization? Like my mom has one of those closet systems. And she had it in her old house, she has it now. And she says that for a small amount of space, it's meant the world to her of being able to keep organized, whether it's organization in a office type of closet, a supply closet, a clothing closet. Do you believe in those? You think they're good?
Absolutely, as long as it's structured. Like, I'm a short person,
Sure.
so for me, I need to have everything lower. And if
Right.
you're going to have a system built, have it built according to your height so
Yeah.
you'll really use it.
Right, right.
Yes.
And when dealing with heirlooms, with older kinds of objects, are there some rules of thumb that you use in helping that person evaluate what do I keep, what do I throw away?
Yes, oftentimes there's such a tug of whether to keep it or not because usually it's a space issue. And for example, I had a client recently who had a piano from her grandmother, and she really didn't have the space and really didn't want it, but felt such an obligation to keep it. So I said, okay, Roxanne, let's just have a photograph of you standing in front of the piano with your two kids and make it a really nice photo, frame it, and sell the piano.
How about the suggestion too of instead of you're throwing things away or you're getting rid of them, you start to part with them, but to family or to friends. You start to think of, oh, I know somebody who would really like this. I don't use it. Is there a less of a disconnection with the item then, that they somehow feel it's still in their lives, but maybe with somebody who
Yes.
is really going to use
And
it?
it goes back to what you said, Ed, about trust building. If I take the time to get to know you and say, what is it that interests you? Like I had a client who just collected bikes, hundreds and hundreds of bikes.
Wow.
We had to get it down to 15 bikes. And when I said, okay, let's donate it to a local prison who rebuilds bicycles for children,
Okay.
suddenly, gone. He was thrilled.
Right, because it meant something to someone. What do you find are some of the most common objects that are taking up space in senior homes and senior closets that are the hardest to part with?
Well, it's silly enough, but even things like bread ties and multiple bags, all sorts of little containers, stackables, plastics for recycling, that type of thing, because I go back to saving was a virtue. Today, it's not a virtue. Toss it, man. Get rid of it.
I think in some of the situations that I've dealt with my own family, I think that there's a certain comfort that an older person takes out of the objects that have been with them for very long periods of time.
Absolutely.
Now, is it reasonable for that person to then assume that because this is an heirloom, that my children or their children should find this valuable and want to keep it as well?
Well, I think we should assume that, but it's really
may not
not
want
the
it.
case.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the younger generation wants sleek, clean lines, not really the older stuff. And I find that really sad, but a lot of my clients are experiencing
But
that.
aren't they, in effect, throwing away their own history?
Yes. Yes.
And is there a way, or should we be looking at a way to circumvent that?
I think we should look at a way to circumvent, and I often encourage my clients to take an inventory, especially if they have a beautiful collection of the Civil War or dolls or something.
Even museums would
Yeah.
just love that stuff if your families don't want it. I want to touch upon quickly before we wrap this segment up about the unsafe nature of a lot of this. A lot of people don't realize that keeping old newspapers is really, if it gets piled up, unsafe.
Sure,
it's
it
a
can be,
fire
yeah.
hazard.
There is a phenomenon right now in America, cited by the Center for Disease Control that hoarding, which is a pack rat, hoarding is an epidemic in this country.
What are the unsafe virtues of it?
And what happens is we collect the newspapers, that's combustible, that's a fire hazard. Or if we have stacks and stacks of clothing and piles of goodies, they slide into the aisleways and we can't get stretchers in for rescue. It's very, very dangerous.
But what do you say to someone who hoards those little red twisties that come with the produce bags in the supermarket?
I say to them, tell me why these are important to you, because chances are someone comes in and says, what are these ties? Oh, you don't use those.
Right, right.
It's really giving the person
What's the
dignity and not making them feel embarrassed for what they have.
Well, we're going to talk more about this. We're going to talk more with Dorothy as well and find out what happened at Lillian's home right after these messages. Stay with us.
After we talked about it, and we talked about several solutions, we actually got to work. And we just started pulling everything out. And we were dividing into things that she would get rid of that were trash. There was another pile of things that were going to go to the sale that they have here. She had other things she was gathering for her son that we could put into storage until she saw him. When you're organizing, one thing that I learned is that you can't always bring it up to the standards that you want. You just do the best you can for that client.
I hope to get a very presentable, easy-to-use closet.
I was really amazed at how much stuff came out of that closet. I thought I had it all, but it was just like the first layer. And I know Mrs. Barker was a little upset when we just totally cluttered her living room with everything that came out of that closet. But I tried to explain to her that a lot of times it looks worse in the middle of the project, absolutely, than it did when we started, but that it will be better before we leave. We won't leave you with a mess. During the process, we were able to take out her winter clothes and to pack away her summer clothes, which is something she really needed done. And I changed containers. She had them in a cardboard box under there. They're now packed in a really nice container. Also, at first, she was very resistant to taking the things that she was saving for her son out of the closet because he was coming to visit. But I was able to convince her that it would be worth it to free up that space.
So now in the reorganization of this closet, the question comes up, how often do you look at these things? Well, not that often, but I may want to. I may want to refer to them, I may want to give them to my children, so that I'm unwilling to give up things that may not mean something to somebody else.
Welcome back. We've been getting a really good behind-the-scenes look at professional organization. So joining us now is Lillian Barker, our brave declutteree. As you heard earlier, Lillian is a resident of the Erickson Charlestown retirement community in Maryland.
And Dorothy Breininger has stayed with us. Well, Lillian, were you reluctant at first? Were you nervous? Did you say, no, I don't need anybody organizing me?
No, I wasn't nervous.
Okay.
I felt that they could only help me. I, believe it or not, am a very organized person. I'm a former librarian, still working at it.
Okay.
I was in the Navy, so my things were all arranged by category and in size places.
But what was it kept you from being personally organized?
Well, because of the lack of space. I had to put everything except linens in this one walk-in closet. So I had things tucked in behind and under, and as you saw, my shoes were in these horrible shoe bags. And I really was unhappy with the way it looked. I could find everything. As she said, she was amazed at what came out of there.
Oh, my goodness.
But she convinced me to get rid of things like empty shoe boxes, which I was hanging on to because I might need them.
Just in case.
I might
Just in
need them for
case.
storage. I might need them to send a package to somebody. I might need them to pack up something for a charity.
Right.
So they were piled up. Well, she did convince me that I could get rid of those. One thing I must stress about Cheryl as an organizer, she did not force me to get rid of anything. She said, I cannot do anything without your
So the
wanting
decisions
to do
were
it.
all your own.
All my own, and that was wonderful because I knew she wouldn't sort of surreptitiously.
Dorothy, do you find that that's commonly the case, that limited space is a
Oh.
contributor to clutter?
Absolutely. In fact, we had a couple of clients moving from Cape Cod, Boston, out to Los Angeles to an assisted living facility, 4-bedroom house down to a 2-bedroom apartment. And you want to talk about space. Yeah, it's very
And
difficult.
even if you're not moving, it's amazing how any persons can grow beyond their space, no matter how big it is. It's just something that happens. Now, when you got to a sentimental item or something that you felt you needed to hang on to for a particular reason, how did that go? How did you handle that?
Yes. Well, actually, you did see one of I have in this closet, in addition to the clothes, 2 file cabinets and 2 chests of drawers, one of which held my purses and my lighting equipment, my bulbs and things like that, and one drawer for this son that was mentioned, who lives in Europe and was coming and is actually right now in the States. But the other little chest of drawers has all kinds of memorabilia, which I actually went through and cleared out before I moved to Charlestown, but it's still loaded. Stamp collections, collections of theater playbills that go back like 30 years, correspondence that I had as a young person with pen pals overseas. I cleared out some of that, but some of it I really, and then old report cards. That she opened a drawer in there.
Old report
Old
cards?
report cards.
Well, that's great.
Yours or your
That's great.
son's?
My children's and mine. So actually, a couple of years ago, we did look at those, and I wouldn't part with them for anything.
No, that's an important emotional
That's
connection
right.
to
That's
a
right.
piece of your past and your kids' past.
That's right.
Certainly, Dorothy. I'm curious about the what I heard Lillian just say. I might need this sometime.
Right.
That's a common psychology, I would think.
Of course
How do
it
you
is.
address that?
She's right. Always honor the person who feels they might need it sometime, because then when I talk to you about it, I say you're right. It might allow me to just shift your thinking a little bit and say, well, how about you just keep 2? You know, you can kind of reduce the number and put a cap
So
on
maybe
how
2
much.
empty shoe boxes instead of 12.
Exactly.
Some of the things she helped me get rid of were containers of small household appliances. I thought sometime I might have to send them back for repair.
Oh my goodness.
So I had those, and we did get rid of those.
Is there anything that you got rid of that you felt, oh gosh, no, I shouldn't have, I needed it?
No, I don't think so.
Good. That's a good sign.
Yeah, that's
you know,
wonderful.
it goes to show you, because that's what happens with me. I get rid of something and I don't think about it, and I realize, you know,
You
I
have
held on to that
regrets.
thing way too long. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want to have regrets. Now, does the son know he's getting all of these goodies?
Well, the goodies really belong to him.
Okay.
You've
been storing some of his stuff?
Yes, because when
That
he
happens a lot too.
Charge him rent. What the heck?
no, when he knows he's coming to the States, he orders a pack of stuff on the internet. And so these packages start arriving
I see.
like a month before he does. And so that all had to be.
Sure.
But there's a time too that happened for me when the parents stopped keeping the kids' yearbooks.
Right.
And stop keeping, you know, the certain things that the kids grew up at. Oh, well, that's so-and-so's boxes. I'm sure when you moved into Charlestown, or at one point, you had to say, come on, kids,
Right.
I can't hold onto your stuff anymore.
That's true.
So, what, did we just give them a call and say, come and get it?
Yeah, you know, there's an identity wrapped up in
Yeah.
how we keep things. You know, if I once was a chef, chances are I'm going to keep Bon Appetit magazine and
Sure,
collections of
sure.
So moms generally want to keep and hold on to their children's belongings. So it's like giving up an identity of being the mom to the
mom,
kids.
yeah, sure.
But once it happens, that you do get your space back. And I did want to mention, for nostalgia, I'm glad you have everything in one area. You really are quite organized, because she refers to a whole chest of drawers that's just memorabilia. So I'm really proud of you for that.
And Lillian, having been through this process now, what advice would you give to other seniors to prevent them from getting into the cluttered situation?
It's hard to know. I would say the box situation was the most traumatic for me just getting rid of all these boxes of various sizes. Some I might need for gifts, you know, fancy from Christmas and so on. If you can tear yourself away from that, because you can replace those things very easily, and there really isn't any sentimental attraction there. So that was great. But I would like to say about what Cheryl did with my shoes, for instance, because it was, you saw how horrible they were in those shoe bags. Cheryl, the big thing she did for me was to give me containers. I have transparent boxes
Great.
for all my shoes.
Well, Lillian, we're about to take a
And
look at the
they're
result of this
longer, which
project
is
on
nice.
Lillian's
Yeah.
apartment. Roll it, please.
When we were done with the project, I really think Mrs. Barker was very pleased. I don't think that she knew in the beginning that it would look this good when we finished. So we took everything out. After that, we started putting it back in and started using the containers, started hanging her clothes on the new wooden hangers. And then after we got it all back in, we kind of fine-tuned it.
Yes. Well, I learned about all these wonderful containers, which I really did not know about. Containers for the shoes, containers for my seasonal clothing, containers for files.
We have a philosophy in organizing: label, label, label. You can't label too much.
Cheryl brought in wonderful wooden hangers, and it gives a great uniformity to the appearance of the closet.
As an organizer, one of the most important things to do is to have your client bond with you, to have them feel like they're enjoying this experience, because they're probably dreading it.
The working relationship with the organizer, Cheryl Larson, was wonderful. She was very low-key. She warned me that she probably would want me to discard a great many things, but she would respect my wishes, which she did. She didn't force me to give anything up. She might have suggested alternative places to put certain things, or alternative uses, or elimination of some duplication. But by and large, we had a wonderful understanding here. We had a lot of humor and got to know each other. I'm really pleased that I got to know her. It looks great. It really does. Glad you like it.
Wow, that's an amazing transformation. I've always said it's amazing what a good hanger can do for a closet. We thank you so much for allowing us in your home.